Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to my show where it really is okay to not be okay. I'm Rae Bonney, a qualified counsellor, workplace mental health specialist, and not to mention a very dedicated and oftentimes enthusiastically disruptive men's issues advocate. It's not every girl's dream job, but hey, remember, men also matter. Well, we've made it to March and the kids are still sticking at school. People are unmasking, hopping on planes, going to work, and life is feeling a little more normal. Oh, and hey, I'm allowed to have guests here in the studio at 3WBC again. That's so exciting. So there is a lot to be grateful for. Now, as always on this show, every month I continue to unwrap one of the greatest gifts going around, and that is people. Layer by layer, we explore the thoughts, experiences, achievements, and challenges of ordinary people bound to inspire the best you. So turn up your radio. The time is just 33 minutes past 10. And we just heard from the beautiful and talented Michelle Ciccardo with her globally popular Italian program, Fantastica, Michelle. Now, I think many of us would agree that people around the world love nothing more than fanatically spectating professional sport, on and off the field, where players are idolised, coaches are honoured, and even commentators get their share of celebrity limelight. Ever read a fan page that celebrates umpires, though? No? Well, this cohort is ridiculously overlooked in relation to their occupational stressors and vulnerability, like negative stereotyping, lack of respect, abuse from innumerable participants, criticism from the media, all of which surely contributes to poor mental health, not to mention compromise of their decision-making abilities. A person who can speak to this like no one else is legend VFL AFL umpire Rae Razor Chamberlain. Entering his 18th season, Rae has a lot to say about his career trajectory and how the game has impacted his wellbeing, positively and otherwise. Yes, people, I have him live, literally jumping out of his seat here at the studios at 3WBC. Welcome to the show, Rae.
Rae, thank you very much for having me on a sunny Sunday.
It is sunny, isn't it?
It is. Sun's out, guns out. I woke up and my wife has some regulatory temperature regulation issues.
If anyone can see him gesticulating now, it looks like Ray's wife is very well endowed in the top area.
No, so she gets steaming hot, right? And so the fan's always on or the aircon. And so I'm not that way inclined. So I often sleep with a beanie on almost because the room it's like you could hang meat. And but last night we didn't have to have the cooling on.
This started off so inappropriately.
It was a little bit cool, right?
Hanging meat in your bedroom.
So I got up and I thought it was going to be freezing because the room's dark. It's all the windows and curtains are pulled down and whatever else. But it was sunny. It's beautiful and it's a great day.
Well, you do look like you're ready to go ice skating. Actually,
I dressed casually today. Yeah, I was suited and booted most of the week, but Sundays we go cash.
No, you were very suited and booted on Friday, but we're going to talk about that a little later in the show. But I like to start with how we met because there's always a story because I love people. And as soon as I meet somebody, it's like, well, let me unwrap you. And not literally, obviously. But it was a Sunday morning and I was in bed. I like a bit of Sunday morning working from bed situation. And I was planning the show for today and I did have somebody else in mind who was already kind of booked in. And I was feeling a bit, yeah, maybe. Anyway, I was flicking through and a girl called, what's her name? Tan contacted me. And then I saw that you were connected to her and I was having a bit of a read and I was having a bit of a listen to a podcast that you did with my friend Suze Jones.
Yes.
And I went, oh no, he's so much more interesting.
Well, that's a bit lovely. Yeah, maybe that was Suze more so than me, but no, that was an enjoyable day.
I do believe she's tuning in this morning. So hey there, Suze. Thanks for your great work. And but I do want to start the show with my trademark question, which is a good one. What does it feel like being you today, Rae Razor Chamberlain?
Today is a bit of relief, actually, is how I'm feeling. It's January through to now is a bizarre time in the calendar every year. So, well, has been for 18 years because of the football commitments. So whilst we undertake an enormous amount of training in that period of time, our face-to-face contact time is close to zero. So I'm not required to be, say, at Carlton, or now we're at Vic Uni in Footscray for these set hours. And so I can fit training in to my diary. So I try and pour 12 months of energy into 3 months into the other parts of my life. I have a staff member, she's hilarious, amongst other things, but she's a funny girl. And she is of the opinion that I am in the witness protection program. And she thinks I lead these 3 separate lives. And footy, when you're not obliged to be in certain places, it can then fit in last, and everything else can come forward. So I've had an enormous amount of energy and effort planning and trying to get things in place for the business. Obviously, I have a mortgage broking business, and last year was really challenging for everyone in all different ways. So for us, connecting with business partners and actually face-to-face stuff and clients was zero. And so just trying to re-establish those things and come back together. And then family, they give up an enormous amount for me to be able to essentially, really selfishly in many ways, pursue this AFL footballing thing.
I'm sure you don't do it for free though, do you, Ray?
No, it's not a charity. It's not. Well, my involvement there isn't. So what happened on this week is it's the last weekend before the season starts. And some people might think that actually would bring increased anxiety and what have you. In some ways it does, but what it does is it shores up my diary, and I get rhythm and consistency now for the next 6 months. And I find with my own headspace and the way my world works that my anxiety levels out.
Yes, I think it's something, Ray, that we've really honed in on during COVID is people and uncertainty. People don't like uncertainty. So as soon as, and me working with organisations and individuals during that time, I think the thing that really got people through was routine and grounding, and keeping that really, really strict routine to know at least you had some control over certainty.
Yeah, it just a flag in the ground, a pole in the ground somewhere, and I think, we can build those things in for ourselves in our everyday life. And whether that be, I get up at this time, I do these exercises because I'm now 144 years old, and and then I walk the dog and I get my coffee, and then I'm into this and I do that. You can build your own certainties to help provide yourself with that a little bit of safety or consistency or rhythm. But certainly, what the last 12 months showed us was, we're not in control of much.
No, we're not at all. We're not at all. It's so I just lost my train of thought completely then.
No, but that's look.
Do you know why? Because I thought I'm just going to go and cue the next song, so I'm way ahead, way organised. I'm very honest on radio about where I'm at. There's no such thing as sorry on radio. But knowing you, because you can talk a million miles an hour, I thought I'll just let him go, and then you stopped. You weren't supposed to do that. But that was, thank you for answering that question as well. A few questions popped up for me, and that was the training. One of the audience asked that question is, how much training do you need to do it, and how do you compare that to, say, the training of an AFL player?
Yeah, so we're quite a diverse group. If you looked at us visually, we're very male and we're very white. Okay, if you looked at that and then you compared that to Australia, which is so beautifully diverse culturally and all of those things, that's something that we're seeing greater levels of diversity in officiating, both at community level and as a result of that, funneling through to the elite level. But as even just our personalities and
Can you just go back to that diversity piece though?
Yeah.
Why is that?
So I don't think it's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but what I would say is this: at an adult level, we now have an elite level, say, of participation and a platform for AFLW for women, which is just amazing. I love the AFLW.
Because we've had one female umpire at
field umpire.
Yes.
We've had lots of AFL goal umpires.
Yes.
Chelsea Roffey would be the one that people would probably be most familiar with. Chelsea wasn't the first, but she was the first to do a grand final, which is an amazing achievement. And she's a star, Chelsea. I love her. And we've got lots of boundary umpires, particularly at AFLW level, VFL, state leagues throughout the country. Yep. Incredibly athletic women who can really run, because it's quite a strong requirement for boundary umpires. They're freaks. And we're seeing an enormous amount of increased participation in the field umpiring space. And so what we are seeing is that level of diversity being more reflective of the wider community, and that can only be a great thing.
Yep. So if we're looking at the elite level and your cohort, are you guys like really close and hang out together?
So there's little pockets, and that can be geography based as well. But I think also, where I was going with the training piece, and I'll answer that question. I'll answer them both.
That's right,
is that we have some
yet,
we have some guys and girls who are like as young as 22, right? And then we have a few of us at the other end, right? And we're 44, 45, 46 years of age. So as you can imagine, not only in your socialisation, okay, that's vastly different to a 22-year-old, but also the physiological requirements and adaptations and how you get the best out of that person on any given Sunday, which is game day, and which is what all that matters. So historically, we've all had the same training program, and you turned up day one, toe the line, and it was just racing for the next 6 months, and it was survival of the fittest. And funnily enough, we would have quite an alarming, in my view, level of injury. However, the AFL, to their credit, have invested heavily in the last 3 to 4 years in particular in that space of strength and conditioning. And so, all things from, AFL players will laugh at this, but because they've been doing it forever. But, just having your GPS monitor on every session that you do, so the strength and conditioning boffins can go and do their thing. And what I've found personally as an older running athlete, is that I've been able to get continuity in training. And so when you get a block of training that's uninterrupted, it's amazing. Even though I'm getting older, my numbers are getting better from where they were in, say, 2017.
But do you have a focus on things like, running obviously is a thing for umpiring, but you talk about strength and conditioning. What does a normal workout look like? And how often do you do this per week?
Yeah, so there's something being done every day. And it depends. So periodization is really important. So if we talk about preseason, where it's getting the Ks in and specific training, and I'll probably do 6 to 7 sessions a week. There's always a day off, and that will be combined between running, for me, riding. So you're getting that aerobic conditioning, and that's where I get that sorted, but not the impact on my joints, and I enjoy cycling, and then there'll be a minimum of 2 sessions a week in the gym, so we don't have to wrestle, tackle, whatever, but that strength component's really important in injury prevention and longevity. So that all forms a part of your training week. So yeah, there's a lot to be done there, and then in terms of the socialisation piece. We're so vastly, we are incredibly diverse in terms of our age. And so you got guys who've just come out of, university or finishing a trade or whatever it is they might be doing. And then you got guys like me who, have had a business for 18 years and have got a family, and the kids are going to high school or whatever. One of my very dear friends, his daughter finished year 12 2 years ago. Right. So, they're almost as old as our youngest umpire. So, but what we do know in our group, they're amazing, to be honest. I've been there for nearly 2 decades, and I say this to people all the time. I go, tell me a cohort in your life that you deal with, Ray, where you could go, here's my keys, my wallet, my phone, and my kid. I'll be back in 45 minutes. And not bat an eyelid. I can hand on heart tell you, with our group, that's the kind of people they are. And what I also know is that even though we are incredibly diverse and have different views of the world, we're aware that we're in it together. So we circle the wagons pretty well and look after each other.
Yeah. So given, the the view of umpires and the attitudes towards umpires, especially on field, do you find that you're even more protective of each other because of that kind of feedback?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Yeah, one of the things around this is, look, there's no walking past, and let's not even worry about just being an AFL umpire. Let's talk about a community-based umpire or in any other sport. Yeah, rugby league, soccer, netball, whatever. So people go to the game and they barrack, right? And they're cheering or booing or doing whatever it is that they do. So that's all real, and I'm more than happy to discuss about those impacts. But what I will say is, as an AFL umpire, it's never been more supported. Like, we've had over 400 club visits this pre-season where umpires have gone out and actually trained with the players and at their training in a collaborative effort to work through decision making and what's the story here? Can I do this? Am I allowed to do that? That's an incredible shift from when I first started umpiring AFL football at the elite level. So, and always so welcomed. Looked after. We've always shown where our space is. Do you need anything? Like, it's an incredibly collaborative industry, and one where I think there's been great ground made. We've got work to do, but in terms of fully inclusive.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? Rather than the us and them mentality, which builds that divide to, as you use that word, collaboration.
Yeah.
Because it is a collaborative thing. It's a spectator sport, so you've got to create a spectacle that's, it's conducive to joy rather than.
And with greater understanding also, of one another and who you are, and it just means, I think everything just hums along in a far more positive way, and as you intimate, better outcomes for everyone, regardless of how you want to measure that.
Yes, and you talked also about the cohort and the diversity of the cohort. Does that also give you an opportunity, given that there is such, say, age diversity, that you guys at the top end can be very good mentors to those up and comers? So
whether you're very good or not is to be put to the side, provided, because I have to challenge myself on that a lot. I know my way. I know what works for me, but how does that impact on this person? This person likes to be communicated in this way, which will be completely different to the next person. And that's one thing that I've personally had to try and work through, in particularly over the last 5 or 6 years. As you say, you become an elder statesman, and I know the people who were supportive of me when I first umpired AFL football, and who protected me or guided me or gave me a clip up the ear when I needed it. There were a few of those. And so, I feel responsible for being the best version of myself for my teammates in any way that I can. We've got a really wonderful opportunity over this next 3 weeks. We're in teams. Often you won't umpire with an individual potentially all season.
Right.
So this first 3 weeks, we've all been given our appointments. We know so long, barring injury or something catastrophic, we'll be in these teams, groups of 3 for the first 3 rounds. And there's often travel. Even this year, there'll be interstate travel. And so you're away from home, and, you're hanging out with each other, and you get to unpack a whole heap of stuff. A lot of it's to do with games and umpiring and questions, but the majority of it's life.
Yeah.
Jesus, we've just had a new kid. Ray, how did you guys handle this? Have you ever done blah, blah, blah? They're probably where most of the conversations go.
Yep.
So this next 3 weeks is a great opportunity in our little groups where we get to unpack a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I think, it appears, even having spoken to you off air, how much change has occurred during your lifetime we probably started at the VFL and, AFL. But is there any particular advice you would give to the up-and-comers, just something really short that's carried through with you that you would intimate to them?
Yeah, it's amazing how much luck the hard workers find in life. There's no elevator to the penthouse, right? You got to take the stairs, and that's true to anyone. You can show me any person who's umpired an AFL grand final in the last 20 years, and there'll be a little glory story or a highlight moment, and I'll be able to, because I know them, I'll be able to tell you, oh yeah, did you know this? Did you know he broke his leg and then had to do this? Did you know this happened? So just, you got to work hard. There's no substitute for that. And the other thing is and this is something that took me a while to sort of sink into my thick skull, is that in umpiring, because we are a club, right? No one wants. There's no joy in seeing you fail.
No one barracks for you.
Only ourselves, right?
That's right.
That's right. We haven't hit 100,000 membership yet. No, but people only want to see you do well, and so when they provide any sort of feedback or what have you, it's only meant to assist you to grow. And the last thing I'd say is it's meant to be fun, right? So don't lose sight of this. You're meant to derive joy from this pursuit. It's not. Yep. If you're not doing that, then we need to sit down and talk about why.
But I guess I feel, when you just say that, I feel a little bit challenged in that you rarely hear, "Gee, that was great umpiring today." Rarely do you hear that. And so I guess in my work, every day it never fails to astound me the absolute resilience and adaptability and agility of the human condition. But then I look at how the human condition can be broken so easily by, in the workplace context, where we have poor leadership and we have poor culture that erodes away at the human condition over time, and then you see it break. But then I look at something like umpiring, which is ever present. You would rarely get out of a match without some kind of negative feedback. I'm sure you get positive as well, but it's that very, very strong, very personal feedback. How over the years have you managed, and have there been times when you haven't?
Oh no, I was going to say at times poorly. So there's definitely an imbalance.
You can cry as well on air if you like.
Yeah, there's definitely an imbalance, and even within umpiring, if we pull it back and we're super honest with one another, we're pretty quick to point out the shortcomings of each other's performances, games, abilities. I think we're getting better at.
I'm talking about you though.
No, okay, yeah, no, that's cool.
You.
So in terms of me, early on, I was overjoyed to have the opportunity and be afforded what I consider, and I still do, to be a privilege to be a participant at the elite level in this game. It's changed my family's world. All right, as kids, my wife and I talk about how we grew up in similar area. And they had 1,000 kids. We had 3 in our house. That was enough. But we have similar stories about, thrown in the back of the car. We went to the South Coast, holidays. We were in an annex in a caravan at a beach somewhere on the New South Wales South Coast, and we loved it.
Sounds awesome.
It was the grouse, right? Browlee Beach Caravan Park, look out, right? And that was our life. And then I as a result of the platform that AFL has provided and afforded my family, if we sat down and I said to my daughter, okay, where are we going? Where are we going to go for our holiday? We've got in 2 years' time, let's assume that the world's got on top of everything. Where are we going? She'll go, mate, Hawaii, bang. She's been there twice. It's like sitting there eating strawberries like she's the Queen of Tonga. So the world's changed and that's as a result of my involvement in elite sport and an incredibly strong industry here in Australia. But throughout that time, I think the game's matured a little bit too.
I'm going to push you again a little bit here because I'm looking for an answer, and it's more around, was there a time, or can you think of times where you just wanted to quit, when you were just so overwhelmed with the feedback that you could not see yourself anymore?
So probably 2000. So I could think of a couple of times, but 2012 was a horrible time in my life. So I'd had an injury, had surgery. It didn't go well, and I went from being, okay, this is just a clean-up, to you might not be able to actually do this anymore. You'll be able to run again. You'll be able to, kick balls and run around, but you won't be able to necessarily manage the rigors of what this requires. That was quite confronting. You got your leverage to your eyeballs in your mortgage or whatever. You bought the new car, and then all of a sudden you get sort of told that. we had a young family, so we at that stage, Scarlett, my daughter, was 3 years old, and we just bought a new house. And on top of that, I had umpired a grand final. The following year, I got to a prelim final. Felt like I got voted out by, noise as opposed to performance, and was really filthy on it. And then all of a sudden, I felt like everything had also been taken away. So that was really confronting, and I found it incredibly challenging. And at that stage, there were no platforms like this. So you were tucked away behind a curtain, and we knew you were here on the P&L, but we don't want to hear from you. So no one was advocating, and you didn't have an opportunity necessarily to provide perspective or your side of the story on anything. So the narrative ran away, and you had no say in it at all, right? And that doesn't sit well with my personality type, and so I had a lot of difficulty, and I probably got a little bit of a victim mentality, to be honest. There was a lot of it was on my side. I had to grow up a bit. So I remember being told that I didn't have to keep coming to training because you're doing your rehab. Ray, you've never been diagnosed with bed sores. We know you're going to do the work. We don't want you to stab anyone with a shiv. You can have some time off. Go and have a holiday. And we went to Hawaii. It was the first time we went. And I remember reading an autobiography from Robbie McEwen. I thought, I was told, read this book. It's a great book. I'm thinking, how interesting can this be? Like a cyclist talking about himself. You know what I mean? Like, what's going to be in this? It was the best read.
Yeah.
Like, it was so good. And there was one chapter in this book where Robbie talks about his patellar tendinopathy. He came around a corner, high speed, smashed his knee into a concrete pylon, and then the injuries that came out of that. But what smacked me in my balding head was that this was one chapter only in his autobiography. This wasn't the whole book. Like, that just became so apparent to me. And so the injury piece was the physical thing. So I was into that. I was rehabbing that. I was going to be the best rehabber that ever drew breath, right? But that then provided me with a platform also then to talk about to the people who were helping with how I'm going about the other stuff. And I was encouraged to go and see someone, and I did. It didn't work out. Wanted to talk about footy, and that was the way to try they were trying to connect. It was fine, but I didn't want to hear it. Anyway, I was then sent to another person. I persisted, and I met a lady, and so she was my psychologist for just over a year, and it was the best thing that I could have possibly have done. I was just able to get rid of all this vitriol and crap on my liver and just get it out, and then she'd go, okay, well, that's fine, Rooster. Here's some homework for you to do. You've got some improvement on self. Go away before next week. I want you to do this. And so we did that for just over a year, and it was an incredibly cathartic, growing experience that I think set me up to then understand how much I actually enjoy the footy and the things I do enjoy. And so the other stuff's a little bit like, it's like the noise, right? It's just whatever. I'm really clear on why I do it.
I'm really glad I persisted with this question because, again, I don't apologise for it.
No.
But I think what you've described there is, and I like that analogy about, that was just one chapter in the book about the physical injury and that realisation that not only may we need support whilst we go through, say a situational crisis, but also the tools that we gather that keep us sustainable as well. And, I'm sort of going, so what happens when everyone's yelling at you and swearing at you and telling you're a white mag? And, well, that was in the olden days.
Yeah, they still say that, yeah.
How do you do that? But then you wrapped it all up and answered it. Now that's just noise because you have the tools.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, not surprisingly, Ray, we're almost at our first break. But before we do that, I just have a really quick exercise that I want to plough through.
Let's do it.
Now, your world in AFL is all about decision making.
Yes.
That's all it is, making decisions for other people. So you've got to, I imagine you're pretty good at it. But when it comes to just normal life, the exercise here is off the top of your head. So this has got to be fast, you can't ramble.
Right.
Quickly describe 1 being non-existent, right? Got that?
Yes.
10 being a control freak, your decision-making ability / willingness in the following domains.
Is it just a number or you want some words to accompany?
You can have only a few words.
Okay, yep,
Because
go.
you have lots of... Okay.
Got it. So one's
1 is non-existent.
non-existent,
So
and then 10's like bang.
Yep.
Got it.
So domestic. Is your wife listening in?
I'm gonna go with 3.
3. Okay. Ordering food.
Hopeless 1, but that's because my wife is very fussy eater.
But ordering food for yourself, if you're at a
Oh,
restaurant...
food for myself, 10, bang, done.
Yep, so you're at a restaurant, the menu comes out and you can just go bang.
I'm going that or that, boom, I'm that.
Yep, cool, 10. Holidays, you've already mentioned Hawaii. Is that taken out of your hands?
Yeah,
Who puts the bins out?
I do.
Why?
Probably because my wife does just about everything to do with the house other than that, so yeah.
And what goes into the bins? What to wear?
No, I'm horrible.
Yeah.
So, like, even, like, what, do I go the brown belt and shoes or the black?
Yeah.
I have to send a photo to my wife and go, which one?
Because we're going to talk about the Chamberlain Foundation later, but you had your big event on Friday.
That's true.
How long did it take you to choose an outfit?
Yeah, well, too long, to be honest. And I packed, like, I was overnight. So I stayed at Crown overnight and I had the biggest suitcase in the history of the world because I wasn't sure where I was going to land. And in the end, I had to send some photos to my wife, and she goes, "Just wear the black." Yeah. So she was super complimentary.
What about pet / child naming?
So no, that's some of the best. That's some of the best stuff in our life. So my daughter's name's Scarlett. My wife and I got to that together. We looked at a whole heap of names, so that was cool. We were really good with that. Pet names, actually, our daughter named our dog. Interesting story.
Mm.
Are you familiar with Naked and Afraid, the show?
No.
Discovery Channel, survivalists thrown into the Amazon, and they're naked, but there's pixelation. So
It sounds like I might give it a watch though.
And it's fantastic viewing, and they've got to last 21 days.
Yeah.
And anyway, we're watching it. Scarlett loves it, and people were dropping like flies because it was a mega one. So there's like 15 of them. And they're getting injured, crook.
Words, Ray.
Yep. So anyway, she says to me, "Dad, you got to be tough to survive the Amazon." I said, "That's true." And we had bought this miniature dash hound, right? And she goes, "Oh, Dad, I reckon this dog's going to be pretty tough." So I reckon you're right, mate. She goes, "I reckon we call him Amazon." It was the best way to come up with a name ever. So we've got Amazon, the miniature dash hound.
Because even when you say miniature dash hound, I've never seen an enormous dash hound.
No, they aren't. But they do vary.
I must say quickly, and I'm talking about you keeping your words low, but I met a lady in the park a couple of months ago. I've got a French bulldog called Vincent, and this lady had this, I guess it was a miniature dash hound, and we're talking about our dogs, and she said, yeah, he's a little bit fragile at the moment because he's just had a total knee reconstruction. And I had to look and go, where do you put a knee into that thing? Like, you'd be operating with like tweezers.
Yeah, they're little units.
And finally, who goes first?
Wife.
So if you're going to jump off a boat into the water in like Hawaii, you'd push your wife off first.
Oh no, sorry. I context is everything, isn't it? No, I she'd make me go and then probably sit down.
Oh dear, this is so much fun, but we do have to go to our first break. And when we come back, we have a bunch of audience questions and some compliments as well for you, Ray. And because you have no idea what they are, you'll have to make some quick decisions about how you're going to answer them as well, because no one likes dead air, do they?
No.
Before that, it's time to start rolling out my very special guest song requests and giving cryptic clues as to when your choices have been programmed. So here's a clue to the first one. Simply, Ray, it's being a man, and most probably an Aussie one. You chose these songs.
So you want me to go?
You got to tell me what it is and why you chose it.
Deeper Water, Paul Kelly.
It's the one.
Bang.
Why?
It's just such a phenomenal song. He's the best. I saw Paul Kelly for the first time. I was 21, 22 in Sydney, and I went, wow, like I loved his songs, and he was entertaining, and he's got the harmonica, he's got the guitar, he's singing lyrics like he's a human Swiss Army knife, right?
Very versatile, yes.
And so I just found that all to be really cool, but I didn't get it, right? I look back now and I didn't see it, I didn't get it, and I still play all his songs now in my car and whatever else, but this particular track, like the older I get, the more I love it, the more it resonates to me, and the more I understand. And I connect with the song, and it's just so reflective of your life, you know. Like there's just so many challenges about being a dude, and it's a complicated thing at times being a guy. We can simplify it though, right? Just be the best version of yourself, and treat people well. I don't think gender matters with that, but when you break it down, there's a lot that goes on in being male and being that person in the world, and this song talks about family in particular, and all the trials and tribulations and the responsibilities that come as you get into that deeper water. The longer you go, it gets deeper and deeper, and you just got to keep kicking.
It's a great song, and I think Paul Kelly is one of the quintessential. Welcome back. The time is just 12 minutes past 11. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC with Rae Bonney, joined by the very theatrical and legendary AFL umpire Rae Razor Chamberlain. Welcome back to the show. We're laughing because we're talking about anxiety, and I was about to start talking to Rae about, I live with pretty terrible anxiety, but stress is just nothing for me. And then the song's about to finish and we're not prepared at all. We're just going, oh my God. But we got to air quite smoothly, really, didn't we, Rae?
We nailed it.
Now, first up, a couple of messages have come through just before the show and during the show as well. We've had Jenny Thorpe. She's a fan of the show and also a very, very good friend of mine for many, many years. And Jenny said, "Great show, Rae and Rae." She's a Collingwood supporter.
Pies girl.
And then we have Marky Brown, another fan of the show, and he chimed in with his little dash hound as well, because he's got one too. So hello there, Mark. You can say hello to Mark as well.
G'day, Mark, and the Miniature Dash Hound Club. It's amazing. I felt like I'd never seen one before until all of a sudden my daughter said, "Let's get one," and now there's like 1 million of them everywhere you go. It's the same with a car, yeah?
Yeah.
You find the car you want to get.
That's right.
And then they're everywhere you look, you see them. You go, well, how have I not seen this car until now?
We've got John Daly as well. Now, John Daly and I went to high school together, and I don't know if we've seen each other since high school, but he has become a fan of the show recently. So thank you, John. And his comment is, "Awesome work, Rae," but spelt R-A-E, so he doesn't mean you.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm just kidding. This has been tough this morning.
I know, and I'm talking about, umpire abuse. I'm the worst. Dwayne Portaway. Now, Dwayne is on the committee for White Alpha Men's Health, which is a charity I'm the vice president of. Okay. And we are all concerned about suicide prevention and prostate cancer prevention. We support Australian prostate cancer research, and we have our event at Marvel Stadium every year. I think it's been called everything since we've been having our event. So every year we have to change all of our comms to say, what is it called now? We missed out last year, but we're planning this year, sometime in about October, I think, to have our event. And Dwayne said, "Love Razor Ray. Looking forward to the interview. Such a personality and a great contributor to the AFL elite level. Has his critics, but he is misunderstood in my opinion."
Oh, thank you very much. That's a bit kind.
David Burt. You might know David Burt.
I do know
from
David.
SALT, Sport and Life Training. I've known David for many years, and we almost kicked off a bit of work together, but we kind of work in the same space but differently. But he said Rae is amazing. It will be a terrific interview. Well, so far, so good.
So far,
really.
so good. Nah.
Now I've lulled you into some lovely validation. Here are some very hard-hitting questions from the audience.
Let's go.
So here's the first one. This is from David and Kathy in Cowes.
Okay.
In Phillip Island.
Yep.
What do you think of the new man on the mark rule, and how will this affect the game?
Yeah, so great question and topical at the moment. I have had the opportunity to play around with at club practice, but it's not really the same because it's not cutthroat. They're playing each other, it's training, what have you. Then I had my first opportunity where two opposite clubs played one another, but again, it was a practice match, right? It was the Amy rounds. It's really important part of it all, but the sheep station's not on the line, right? And so, I'll get my first real life look at it on Thursday, like everyone else, when the season kicks off, and I'll get my first go at it on Saturday. What I do understand is that the AFL are really keen to just work on the balance between offense and defense in the game. So for a while now, we've just seen defensive influence suffocate the game in that balance, and it's probably and so they want to see more offense, and so that's why some of these things have been brought in. What I do know from watching it is that intuitively, the player with the ball has taken the game on more. They've been more attacking in what I've seen to date. They're prepared to move the ball more quickly. The guy who's the person on the mark is unable to be as effective or as influential. They're basically taken out of the play. And so then that creates additional opportunity for the person with the football. So rather than going sideways, slow, backwards, or just long up the line and they punch it out of bounds and it's a boundary throw in and it's a stoppage again and we're all waiting, they keep the ball moving. So there's this continuous action, continuous play in a more aggressive fashion. We've only seen a little snippet. We haven't seen nearly enough to determine whether this will be a good thing, nothing, or something that needs to be thrown out.
It's interesting how you talk about the attitude changing between, say, a practice match, which, I'm sure fans take practice matches quite seriously.
Yeah, they do.
It's
therapy.
My daughter Rose, she's a crazy Collingwood supporter. And, she's glued to anything that looks like football all the time. And so she can't see the difference between, the pre-season stuff and the on.
Well, I had an exchange during the practice game that I had where a player, who I won't name, really competitive guy, as they all are. Like, they're playing the elite level. There's no higher level of this code than AFL senior football, right? So these, apart from being incredibly talented and physically amazing and brave, so incredibly brave, they're all passionate and invested and competitive. So as a result of that, you often are the lightning rod, or where the frustration is espoused through no fault of anyone's. It's just it's part of the gig. Anyway, it was during the third quarter, and a goal had been kicked, and this player said to me, "Ray, I reckon you guys are going all right today." Now, I knew, therefore, it had to be a practice game because this gentleman, right, who I love, in my 18 years, he's never said that to me when it matters, which is just because of the nature of the headspace. So, yeah, it's an important step in their preparation, but we'll pull the curtain back and have a real go this weekend.
Absolutely. Now, there was something that I was thinking about only last night, and I don't know why I overlooked it, but last year you guys were, living in a hub together, and, it was a season like none other, and I'm just wondering what it was like, because you had to live away from home.
Yes.
And also when you're going out there onto the field and there's no crowd.
Correct.
Tell us, just give us an idea of what that time was like.
Yeah. So there was sort of, like anything, you make of it what you want to make of it. So I tried to draw on and find, well, where can this help me? Where can I make this of benefit? My diary gets really full. One of my character flaws is I'm not particularly good at saying no.
That's why you're on this show today.
Yeah, Sunday, sure.
Community radio.
No, but I'm not. I'm not great at saying no, and so all of a sudden, I'm at 120% capacity before I blink, and so what COVID did, and what us going away into a hub was I had a legitimate reason to say I can't help, and so I took the time to re-energize, to fuel up my battery again, which I found to be incredibly helpful personally. But in terms of that whole experience, no crowds was crazy. I realized how, first of all, how important, like how absolute centerpiece the fans are to the game, the whole experience. They bring an energy and a colour and a drive that just makes it so brilliant to be a part of. And I know that we're getting a lot of feedback that's not necessarily, keep it up, Ray. You're killing it, mate. Woo!
Great decision, Ray.
Right? We're not a lot of that. But that energy is it's just addictive, right? It's brilliant. And so not having that there became painfully apparent how important a role the fans are. It's about them. But then also, from me personally in performance on field, so there's this wasteland, which was I remember doing a game at the MCG, and it was Richmond versus Hawthorn. They wanted to sell there. And normally, there'd be 85,000 people at the MCG for that game. And it was just, and I found my focus drifting off, right? And whereas normally what happens is I get closed in, that crowd, that noise almost fills that space, and now my head's just in here. And so that I realised after that game, and it was a couple of games like that, I went, actually, I need to find a mechanism to maintain focus because I'm drifting off into along with the tumbleweeds in the Great Southern Stand.
So what did you find a mechanism? So
for me, it was all about, it was a physical thing that then brought a mental alignment. So we have this thing where there's a mark or a free kick. Okay, so there's a lead up, which is your initial position. And then we talk about set kick, and there's a whole raft of things that we need to do. Where the mark is, blowing the whistle, your position, clearing protected area, setting the mark, play on call, effective. And then what that does is if you get all that going again, your mind just goes, it automates back into a rhythm, and you get this momentum, and away you go, you're back and you're immersed. So I was just very much highlighted a focus to get my initial position right. So I've got to be thinking, where do I need to be? And then get that set play right. So that would just draw me back in all the time. So that was a real focus area for me to get that right every time. So that was my effort to try and keep my brain inside the field of play. The other thing is, when you make a decision on field, good, bad, or indifferent, you generally have one person to deal with, and it's the person on the mark who feels aggrieved, right? Because the noise is just like you've dived under a wave. Yeah. That's all you hear. When there's no crowd, you're now dealing with 36 people, right? And I didn't realise how passionate the players were about umpiring. We've got a spot on our list, and I think they're all applying for it, right? Because they're all giving you their feedback. And so that was quite, wow, okay, I don't normally hear all of you guys in a normal course of events. So that took some adjustment. In terms of being away, it was a real challenge because you leave your family, business, whatever it might be. Yeah, we all have different setups. But the AFL were wonderful, and for those who could manage it, and in our case it was okay. We've got a daughter at school who was doing, remote learning, and my wife's role allowed her to work from home. She still is, and so they were able to come via a quarantine process to the Gold Coast, and they spent 7 weeks up there. But again, that, as I've said this previously, then we needed to reconnect within that environment. And I've got school, Dad. I've got work. I'm running a business. I'm trying to prepare for an AFL game.
I was going to say, you're probably batching it for a while. Then all of a sudden, did that kind of.
Oh, the first 2 months I slipped into that quite nicely. Right, that was just worrying about myself. I was perfectly adept at that. But then, coming back. So one last thing about that, when it became apparent we were moving, I remember receiving a text message. It said, this was on the Friday evening, you're leaving Monday. You'll be gone for 21 days. More information to follow. Pack light. Right? Seriously, pack light. And then the email said the same thing. Gone for 21 days, going to Sydney, blah, 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 pack light. By that Thursday, so that was on Sunday, by that Thursday, I'd umpired a game and I was heading to Perth. I returned to Melbourne 120 days later. So, that was the year that was. We were all affected. We were blessed to maintain our employment. We were blessed to maintain purpose. And we were blessed to be in an environment that, whilst it wasn't a holiday, we weren't locked into our house with 1 hour a day that we were permitted to leave. I only know that experience from what I've heard from others sharing. I didn't have to go through it. And so, in many ways, incredibly fortunate.
But it is change, and going back to what I was saying earlier in the show, it never fails to astound me how adaptable and agile the human condition is, and we've just proven it time and time again that we can, and that's how we're designed. So,
well, even in our code, just our industry, the fact that the AFL were able to, with state governments, et cetera, were able to actually get the season away. Like, I am astounded that took place. I just can't believe that the industry were able to come together in whatever form it was and get that year done in the way they did. I just think it's an incredible pat on the back to all involved, and I have such respect.
If only the tennis could have done it so well. Sorry. Okay.
I'm not going there.
Moving on. Speaking of perfect design, actually, anyone that knows me well, in fact, John Daly, if you're still listening in, you'll remember this. But I am the number one fan of Tim Watson. Everybody knows that. From the moment he arrived from Dimboola at the age of 15, I have followed that man like semi-stalking. I must admit, and to this day, if you want to break into any of my accounts, bank accounts, anything, it will have something to do with Tim Watson. But this question will decide whether you stay for the rest of the show or not. Did you ever rule against Tim Watson on the field?
Did I ever
rule against him?
No.
Good
No. The short answer is no.
Because he's perfect.
in every way.
Never makes a mistake. Never makes a mistake, that man. When people say to me, who do you think will win the Brownlow this year? I go, Tim Watson. They go, he hasn't played for 100 years. He still deserves it, though. Tim has actually been on the show here. And, in all seriousness, and I always like to shout this out, that, I had a pretty difficult childhood, and he was the person that kept me alive, and I owe my life to that man. His kindness, his care, even at his very young age, he, I would write him probably 2 or 3 times a week. He would always reply. In fact, on the show, he said he thinks a few of those letters may have got a bit mixed up with a bit of mashed banana in the bottom of his bag. But even to this day, if I ask him for something, and I rarely ask him for anything, but he will always respond.
That's cool.
Do you know, people listening in, that's all you have to do to be a decent human being. Be kind, be caring, cost you nothing.
Yep, agreed.
Got to talk about Tim Watson.
Yay.
Now, there was a question about what kind of mental and physical fitness regime you follow, but we've kind of already answered that. I've got a really simple one, actually.
Let me be the judge of that.
Can you barrack and support for a team?
Well, you can, but you wouldn't last long. So the short answer is no. But keep this in mind. We're all passionate about the game, okay?
Yeah.
And so at some point you weren't in the AFL. At some point you're at community level, state league level, you would have followed a team.
Yeah.
Everyone, right? So to think that didn't happen is silly. But it's a classic. I caught up with some mates from Canberra. They were down playing golf the other weekend, and we caught up. And they brought a friend from work along, and he asked about going to the footy as a fan. And all my mates go, and then they go, what? And so I remember we're at the MCG, and I took them all along, and the ball goes out of bounds, and one of my colleagues doesn't do what he's meant to do on the field, okay? And so that impacts on the other 2 guys. And I'm like, for God's sake, rah. And they go, what? They think something's happened on the field, right? And I go, he's meant to do this. And they, are you looking at the umpires? I go, yeah, man, that's what I do, right? Like that's the lens that I see this game through. I've been conditioned to see this game through that lens. So I don't barrack for anyone. I follow the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Canberra Raiders. And when it comes to AFL footy, my head's wide as an umpire, and that's how I view the game. I hope that potentially when I pull the pin, that some way, shape or form down the track, I'll find that fanboy headspace again and passionately just let loose with it all, because I love the game.
Yep.
Yeah, but no team.
No, that makes sense. Because do you sort of have your industry crush as well on, other umpires from other codes as well that you go, I want to be like that?
Absolutely. I think you can always learn, and players too, I might add. So, over the journey, there's been guys or girls. So my favourite player ever is Erin Phillips. And I've told her that she has to tell Tracy that I'm in love with her, and she told that's fine, Ray. Right? So I absolutely adore her. I think she's such a great person, super kind, and a phenomenal player. But in terms of other codes and what have you, I always thought Bill Harrigan was just a decade and a half ahead of anyone.
Who's he?
So he was the greatest referee of all time in the NRL, and he just was so superior in everything that he was doing at that time when he was involved. So I was always pretty fond of him. And then in terms of AFL, I remember our current coach is Hayden Kennedy, and he was the game's record holder at one point in time. And back in the day, he was there were only two on the field, and he can run. Like seriously, he'd just hammer us all. No one could get near him. So I really admired him and what he did with that stuff. But every umpire, there's something that they do that they're the best at it. So, I look at my colleagues, and, I remember a guy named Justin Schmidt. Schmitty was a ripper, a smart man, really good man. And when it came to something that was out of the box, a little volatile, but he was the best at handling it. He just had this composure and strength and understanding, bang, get it right every time. And I go, man, how good is he at that, right? So I try to learn that off him. Scott McLaren, just the most incredible ball bouncer in terms of consistency. He's bulletproof. Now, he wasn't necessarily the sexiest at it or the biggest bouncer or whatever, but he's just bulletproof. Sit down, have a coffee. Scott, how do you do this? What is it that you do? So there's always something that you can learn, whether it's directly from your immediate peers or through other codes. And I think if you continue to try and put a layer on what you're doing, then you maintain relevance and you maintain your position on our list. And when you think you know everything and there's nothing there for you to get better at or work on, you probably act your way out, don't you?
Well, yes. I was just thinking about that when you're talking about the centre bounce. Just say you're an umpire who is great at everything, but you're not great at a centre bounce. Will that count you out as qualifying to be a coach? An umpire?
It will. But see, you don't have to be a phenom at everything, okay? But you have to be competent.
Yeah.
So you just need to be meeting the standard. So probably, so if you're at 85% contestable at AFL level, that'll get you through every day of the week.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's probably where I sit in my career. So that's not my one wood, the old bounce. Yeah. But you work at it hard enough so that you're competent enough, yes, and then you let the rest of your game shine from there. And that's what I was talking about before too, about supporting and how we look at others and what have you. I look at different team units and I sort of think to myself, don't leave that guy in there for that long. He can't run like that. Get him out. You're a better runner. So let him do a share and then get him out and you get in there because you're an amazing runner, yeah, or, whatever it might be. So I think we've got great scope there to continue to manage the game better as on-field officials by identifying our strengths and areas where we're not as good, and then coming together as a three on the ground to ensure that we put our best foot forward for the game.
Well, it's certainly going to be one of my new male focuses, I think. This week I had the privilege of working with butchers, and that was probably one of the best days in my career, working in men's health. Amazing. It's like when you scratch the surface of a cohort who are so passionate about what they do, yep, and how they do it and how they work together, all the things that you're describing today about umpiring, convert that to butchers and it's the same thing but different.
Yep, I understand.
It's very, very cool. But Ray, guess what? We're off to our last break, and in our final segment, we're going to be talking more about, well, we actually haven't talked at all about the Chamberlain Foundation, which is your foundation which has focus on suicide prevention and what this means for that. So second special guest song request is coming up. Have I programmed this correctly? Here's your cryptic clue. Big, heavy, yellow head.
Big, heavy, yellow head? No, you got me. I don't have a clue now.
Think about it. Think about something that has a big, yellow, heavy head, and it kind of... It may not be human.
I was just about to say Big Bird. That's what I was going to say. You're gonna have to do this one. I don't have a clue.
Okay, it grows in the ground. It could be a flower.
Oh, sunflower. Yes.
It was a good clue though, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, on reflection, yes. But I was thinking, well, it was like a digger. Like I was thinking like a tractor. I was thinking Big Bird. No, sunflower. Brilliant song.
So what does this mean for you?
Look, to be honest, I just love the track. It's interesting about how it talks about support. There's a bit in there that references support, and I think also an ability. I think, and park this bit for a second, but also, and we'll talk about this in the next section a bit.
Will we?
But I'm going to take you there whether you like it or not. But just the role of being a person who potentially is there for someone who might be suffering, and being able to actually, as that role, apparently the person of strength, you have your own vulnerabilities, your own traumas, your own bits and pieces that you're carrying, and I think it's important to acknowledge those things to self, and I think it's important to get support for self, and I think it's also important to acknowledge the love, support and strength that you provide for others and feel good about that.
Great way to end the segment. So we're going to go to this song. It's Sunflower, Post Malone from the Spider
Correct.
Verse.
Yeah.
My Rory's sitting out there in the green room at the moment. I know he's high-fiving me for getting that right. He loves this song. He was like, yes, that's a bloody good song, Mum. Anyway, don't go away, people. We'll be right back. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC. Welcome back. The time is just 40 minutes past 11 or 20 minutes to 12, however you like to skin it. And you're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC with Rae Bonney and often theatrical and boundary pushing AFL umpire, Razor Chamberlain. Welcome back.
It's a quick song.
It
caught you short again.
I know. I think you're doing this deliberately to distract me. You know, I'd love a bit of a conversation.
And I like to see how you operate under pressure.
As I was saying to you before, you know, anxiety is something that, you know, I live with every day. And when that comes to get you, that really hurts. But stress, nah. Stress, no dramas. There's, you know, it's not that I don't see the point in. I mean, stress is a normal reaction to life, and you will see this, you know, in the AFL. I mean, no player starts playing a game going, yeah, give it a crack. You know, they're pumped. That's their stress levels. You know, they've got to be high for that moment, and then afterwards they stretch back to where they were, have a few beers. You know, well, not that you're allowed to during the season.
That's right, ice baths and compression garments now.
Yes. Are you allowed to drink alcohol during the season, or?
We live in Australia, yeah. So no, you're absolutely. We're but you know, at my stage of my career, it's like that in the marathon, and you got that rubber band between the front group and the group just trying to hang on, you know, and it's stretching, and it's just about to go.
Yep.
Pop, and you're out.
That's what I call it. People snapping, people breaking.
Right. So for me, yeah, the old there'll be plenty of time for beers and red wines, etc. in the future. But right now, I'm sort of trying to hang on with the rubber band stretching. So it's on hold.
Oh, now look, coming up at 12 noon, which is in about 17 minutes or so, is Paula Hogg with her lazy Sunday afternoon, and she does all of her show on CDs, and she brings them all in here every Sunday on public transport and does a really ripper show. But look, if any of our discussions today have brought up uncomfortable feelings for listeners, please remember help is there. Here's a few options for further support. You've got Lifeline, which is 131114, Suicide Callback Service, which is 1300 659 467, and of course Emergency Services is 000. So, Ray, let's talk Chamberlain Foundation, shall we?
Yeah.
We mentioned it a little bit at the start of the show because you just had your annual event on Friday, which you're allowed to have.
Yes.
So I'm just going to hand over to you, like I know nothing about this foundation.
So the Chamberlain Foundation is a not-for-profit charitable organisation. We're DGR status, so deductible gift recipient. So if you donated or what have you, it's a tax-deductible donation. So what we do is we hold events and run programs that generate funds, and then we distribute those to chosen beneficiaries. The beneficiaries obtain that funding by applying to our foundation, and our board will make decisions on whether they want to support a particular program or not. Our main focus is in the space of supporting our first responders and servicemen and women. So
I saw that on Facebook this morning, actually, with our police.
Yeah. So that's Living Brave is this year. Ranj Samrai, who's one of our board members, she brought this program to the board, and she was very passionate about it. And after some dialogue with the Police Association and members there, I've got lots of clients who are members, serving members of Victoria Police, and having conversations with them. I then felt similarly passionate about it. So we had our luncheon, the Chamberlain Foundation luncheon at Crown. We were in the Aviary. I remember when we went there, we normally sort of get a tribe of about 150 to 200 people, and we were worried about COVID, obviously, impacting on our ability to hold the event. Because last year the event was on the day the Grand Prix was closed. And it was a really weird. It was difficult. Lots of people couldn't come through their work, saying, "Look, policy can't go." So we're very mindful of that. So the Aviary is wonderful in that it can transform into an indoor to an outdoor type setup, and that provides us with a bit of grace and a little bit of an insurance policy regarding COVID restrictions should have anything unforeseen pop up. Anyhow. We sold the joint out. So it was amazing. We had 280 people in the room, and Geraldine Hickey was our comedian on the day. Brad McEwen always gives up his time, MCs beautifully. Erin Smith, who's an incredibly intelligent, learned woman, spoke about issues pertaining to vicarious trauma. She's done a lot of work with 9/11 and the families post that. We had Mark Thomas, who is a serving police officer, Vic Pole, and he shared his experiences and his hurdles and efforts to work through PTSD, Code 9 Foundation, which he's established. And then we had Jiva Mentor, who is just the most gorgeous human being that you could ever meet. Wonderful athlete. He's captained England, Great Britain, in netball. He's currently with Collingwood. Has played for other organisations and won premierships here in Australia. And she came and spoke about her role as a senior member within a club and the framework and the structure and support sport can play. And a lot of her teammates have come from other parts of the world and other parts of Australia to be based here in Melbourne. And the challenges that they face being away from family and how the team become their family and become their support network, and how structure and those sorts of things can help in that space. And she was incredibly articulate and just her wonderful self in the way that she did that. So we had a great day. It's probably a part of my life that I get the most joy out of. There's a bit of selfishness in there. I meet so many wonderful people. I come across and learn so much.
How did it all start, Ray?
Yeah, so I grew up in Canberra. I have two younger brothers who are both adults, family, kids, all that stuff now. And I've moved away for footy, okay? And so the conversations got to a point where essentially I was on the phone going, "Have you rung mum? Why haven't you rung mum yet? Who's paying for Christmas?" It was this sort of transactional crap. And that's all well and good when you're at the coalface. But for me, I had left home and I haven't been at home for 20 years. Okay, so, my brothers are the ones that help mum and dad move. My brothers are the ones that go around and help with the deck. I'm not there. So, I could be the eldest, but who am I to be ringing up and putting the wind up them and judging and pushing and prodding? It just wasn't right. So, I wanted to do something with them that was positive. So I just said, why don't we do something a bit challenging? We've got great networks. We'll make a bit of money maybe, and we'll give it to someone. It was a very random sort of thing. Now the event ended up happening. I wasn't able to do the first one because of footy, but so the notion was we did a hike, boots in the water in Bermagui, New South Wales South Coast, and hiked to the top of Mount Kosciuszko. So my brothers did that, and that was the first sort of major event that we did. And anyway, the concept was supported by all, but no action took place. We got busy lifing, and I was driving home, coming up towards Southland, heading back towards where I live, and the phone rang, and it was my brother, hands-free, answered it, and I started off by giving him some stick, as you do, as brothers, siblings, and then it became apparent to me that my brother was upset. He was crying, and he said, Robbie took his own life. Robbie killed himself. And I thought he was referencing my best mate, whose name is Rob. And but then it dawned on me, no, he said Robbie, he means his best mate. Oh, and I had this sense of relief, which is just the weirdest thing ever. So Robbie left behind 2 young children, family, friends, etc. So what Robbie's passing did do is it provided a catalyst for us and a focus and a drive, I think, and we got going. And for my brother, who Peter, I think it's helped him enormously cope and work through and feel as though potentially, hey, I'm trying my best, Robbie, what have you. For all of us, we've all got our own experiences and touch base here, there, and everywhere around this issue. So we've all got our why. My younger brother Brian has his why. Ranj on the board, she has her why. Serge, she has her why. So yeah, the Chamberlain Foundation was formed. We're about 6 years in now. We've donated just under 400 grand to different programs and organisations, and we love doing it. The only way we're able to do it is because of the tribe that come with us. So you can set up, you can book a venue. Yes. Do you know what I mean? Yes. But if the people don't engage and don't find joy in it and aren't able to see the celebration and the good work and the impact they're having, I think there's lots of other shiny, bright things that can distract a person very easily. So yes, we feel very privileged and humbled by those that continue to support. I referenced actually at our lunch, out of the 28 tables or whatever it was that were there, we had 6 or 7 who I refer to as the OGs, and they've been there since day one, and they continue fronting up, and we're just so grateful for everything that they provide.
I know I think anyone that gets off their ass and does something, I think, I could be quite critical of many who, like to, they're armchair warriors who like to have an opinion on things and a very strong opinion on stuff, whereas, you might want to take that opinion and activate that into some action. And, I had a question for you. We've only got about 5 minutes left, Ray, but I think one thing that I feel very strongly about, especially in my role as Vice President of the Australian Men's Health Forum, we're the peak body for men's health here in Australia, and it's very well known that men's health, health in general, in terms of research and funding, 93% of research and funding goes towards women's health. So it leaves, a whopping 7% left for men. So we're very, very reliant on funding a lot of those grassroots organisations that we support. We support the industry, we support the sector in bringing it together and bringing action. So my question to you is, with all the money that we raise in mental health, all the money that goes, say, to Beyond Blue or to Movember, why is the suicide rate continuing to rise? So is money the thing?
Well, money's never the thing. I mean, it's in any part of your life, yeah.
But is fundraising enough?
So no. So ultimately, awareness is important. So there's lots of inputs. Yeah, I'm not. And by the way, this is just a little umpire's opinion. That's all this is. I don't profess to be an expert at much. Holding the ball, I'm amazing at. Marking contest, best in the world, whatever.
I know you caught my phone before.
but when it comes to this space, one of the things that I'm really keen to try and do by my own action and behaviour is actually what you just referenced, right? Is can we get upstream? So we get to this alarming acute point, and we jump in there because it has to happen. That has to happen at that space, right? Because it's red alert stuff, yeah. But I'd love. This is what we want to do with our foundation. We want to fund programs that are trying to get upstream. I want to try and encourage not just men, but I'm talking about men today. This is where we are, to get on the front foot before things get to this acute position. So, you know, I've got a really cool guy in our world. He doesn't own shoes apparently, and he gave me this really wonderful analogy about the car and the dashboard in terms of wellness. And you put the key in and boom, the lights come on. Now they're not Christmas tree lights, right? They're giving you information, and we get information every day as men. How did I sleep? How am I feeling physically? How's my waist? How's my sex life? There's all these different signs that we get given. Now they're all physical, but it provides us a gateway and an avenue then to get in front of your GP and then have other conversations as well. So not waiting until the dashboard's throwing 12 red lights at you, but actually getting ahead of it and attending to it. So it might just be then all you require is to get off the beers or get off the coffee after midday so that you sleep better. And that might be just enough. But if you keep pulling at that string that's coming out of your jumper all of a sudden, and you don't just nip it off and attend to it, you got to have this big ass hole on your sleeve, right? And so we how do we educate men and recalibrate them to actually intuitively and openly and wantingly attend to these matters upstream before it gets to an acute?
Well, how about we don't wait until they are men or even adolescents?
So,
why don't we start with boys?
I love this.
That's probably my thing that I become very, very animated about, is when you're talking about that upstream bit. That's the bit when he's birthed.
Right.
That's the time to start not even educating, but showing. And you use the analogy about the dashboard. You know, I was talking to a guy years ago, and he said, "Oh yeah, but men don't seek help. Men don't show emotion." I said, "Blah blah bullshit."
Yeah.
And I said, "Tell me about your car." And he said, "Well, oh yeah, I love my car." I said, "I'm sure you do." I said, do you take care of it? He goes, "Yeah." So what do you do with it? Service it, change oil, change water, do all that. Yeah. Polish it every weekend, mate. You know, I'm out there.
Yeah.
I'm out there waxing. I said, "Okay, who showed you how to do that?" "My dad."
Yes.
So there you go. So you know how to look after your car. So I think the way that boys are raised, they're not shown how to take care of themselves. They may be told to do things, but they can't listen to that. But when you show and you lead by example, that's when we know what to do. So again, I will reinforce, men do seek help. Men do show emotion, and men do speak out. But ones that aren't shown how to do it effectively and efficiently find it very, very difficult to know where to even start. So raise your boys, please.
Amen to that. And you know, and parenting would need another month to talk about that, right?
Come back.
But I love what you say there about getting upstream. Well, let's do it from the get-go. One of the programs that we were so proud to assist was the Are You OK to 6 program. So it's basically a program for teachers in primary schools, providing resources to teach kids how to be good friends. So we're all for that.
Yeah, I'm all for that as well. We've just about run out of time. The Divine Paula is in studio one at the moment, gagging to get on air, and she just looked up at me. I can see her on the camera. So we've got one more song to play, which is one of your favourites, I know. And I don't have to be cryptic about this because there's only one left in the trilogy. So tell me about this one.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper, like this movie is just incredible. Him and Gaga were just so amazing, and I just love that. There's nothing that this man seemingly can't do. So he's just the most handsome dude rocking around. Incredible actor. Oh, and then guess what? He can sing as well. But
Intro
yeah,
the song.
just sorry.
Tell me what the song is.
Yeah, so maybe it's time. So I think for me, having to drop a whole lot of stuff. You don't have to carry all this baggage all the time. You're allowed to put some of this crap down. And as you get older as a guy, you keep carrying it, you'll fall over. It'll break you. And so for me, that's what this says to me. This is what it reminds me of. It's going, mate, you can let that stuff go. Yeah, you're not that anymore. You're not there anymore. You're here and you're this. And so be that. So yeah, that's what this one says to me.
Well, Razor Chamberlain, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you for your entertainment, your insight, your wisdom, your stories, all of it. I know from the feedback I'm getting, people have been well entertained off field today.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I've really had a good time.
It's a pleasure. Now, finally, remember, everyone, it really is okay to not be okay. Just ask that question. What does it feel like